God is empty, just like me. This single lyric from Zero by the Smashing Pumpkins ignited a cultural storm. Released as part of the groundbreaking double album Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness in 1995, Zero became a cultural statement that embodied the existential angst of the 1990s. Its dark themes and provocative lyrics has sparked discussions, debates, and even outright controversy. From its bold rejection of the traditional ideals to its stark nihilistic undertones, Zero has divided listeners and critics for decades. In this video, we'll delve into the creation and history of the song, uncover the controversies behind its lyrics, and explore the reactions that cemented its place in rock history. Hi, I'm Andy Fenstermaker, host of Poetic Wax, a weekly music history series and podcast where I dig into the record collection I've been building since the 1990s and explore the sometimes little-known history of a band album or song from within. I recall being absolutely floored the first time I heard Zero. I remember the moment precisely. It was the evening of October 23, 1995. I was in my bedroom, a tape cassette in my black boombox, recording the band's live performance at Riviera Theater in Chicago as part of their release party, which was broadcast live to alt-rock stations across the United States. What I didn't know was the history of the song or the controversy it would soon spark. Let's dig in. Released as part of the monumental double album Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness in October of 1995, Zero became one of Smashing Pumpkins' most iconic tracks. The album itself was a bold artistic statement, exploring themes of love, loss, and existential despair across a whopping 28 tracks and multiple genres and subgenres. Within this expansive and emotionally charged project, Zero stood out as a blistering anthem of nihilism and frustration, capturing the spirit of that particular alienated generation, resonating with youth of the day, but not necessarily entering the slacker anthem classification of songs like Smells Like Teen Spirit or Creep. The song emerged during a period of intense creativity for the Smashing Pumpkins, with frontman Billy Corgan writing prolifically to craft what he described as Pink Floyd's The Wall for Generation X. In interviews, Corgan has referred to Zero as a distillation of pure self-loathing, an embodiment of the negative emotions that shape much of the album's darker side. The simplicity of the track's composition, a relentless chugging riff paired with aggressive stripped-down lyrics, was intentional. Corgan wanted the song to feel primal and immediate, a reflection of the emptiness that he felt. By the mid-1990s, the Smashing Pumpkins had evolved from the shoegaze-inspired roots into a band capable of massive arena-filling anthems. Zero represented a sharp turn toward the rawer, more abrasive sound compared to the lush-layered production of 1993's Siamese Dream. This shift mirrored Corgan's growing fascination with themes of existential despair and the futility of traditional ideals, a perspective that would heavily influence the song's lyrics. Alongside the song, the Zero aesthetic emerged as a defining element of the Smashing Pumpkins' identity during this era. Billy Corgan's now famous black shirt, emblazoned with the word Zero, became a cultural symbol embodying the nihilistic ethos of the song. Pair that with his shaved head, which would come shortly thereafter. It reflected not only the band's embrace of darker themes, but also their awareness of the power of visual branding in shaping their legacy. It hits listeners with an unfiltered punch of raw energy, serving as both a catharsis and a challenge. By stripping the song down to its most essential components, the Smashing Pumpkins created a defining track for themselves and a cultural artifact for the 1990s. A time when alternative music grappled with themes of despair, identity, and rebellion. Speaking of rebellion, we need to look at the Backlash. From its provocative lyrics to its symbolic visual elements, Zero became a cultural flashpoint, sparking significant backlash. While the song resonated with fans who embraced its raw honesty, it also drew a lot of criticism from religious groups, cultural commentators, and others who interpreted its nihilistic anthem as promoting despair and non-puritanical things. The line, "God is empty, just like me," was the primary catalyst. Many religious groups viewed this lyric as blasphemous, interpreting it as a direct denial of God's existence or a promotion of atheism. These interpretations aligned with the growing concern at the time that rock music, particularly grunge and alt-rock, was leading young people away from traditional values. The critics accused the band of glorifying emptiness and spiritual crisis, with some conservative commentators labeling the song as dangerous for impressionable youth. In an era when artists were often blamed for societal unrest, Zero became another target in an ongoing debate about the influence of popular music. Billy Corgan has shared his insights into the lyrics' meaning, though much of his explanation remains deliberately ambiguous. In interviews, he described "God is empty, just like me" as an allegorical statement, maintaining that the lyric was not an attack on religion, but an expression of personal struggles. Corgan explained that the line reflects his feelings of emptiness and disconnection rather than an outright denial of faith. I have here the full book insert from Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness 4 LP box set, and I'm going to read a little snippet. I did not know then that I would become the song, and the song would become part of my assumed identity. The tossed off "God is empty, just like me" brought the God-fearing and hell-loving out to hound me for a few years in various backstage parking lots, trying their best to convert me to a God and savior I was already sold on. Most seemed disappointed that I didn't put up more of a tenacious fight beyond my saying that one lyric does not make a man nor show the depths of what he believes in his heart. Despite his clarifications, the lyrics' open-ended nature left it vulnerable to misinterpretation, perpetuating its controversial status. For Corgan, it reflects the duality of God as both a source of fulfillment and an acknowledgement of emptiness. He also hinted at a personal context for the lyric. At the time of Mellon Collie's release, he felt incredibly alienated by the public's perception of him as a quote-unquote rock god.
I kept being told I wasn't attractive enough, I wasn't this enough, I wasn't that enough, and so I thought, fuck all you all, I'm going to negate myself. I'll shave my head, and I literally will put across my chest, I am nothing.
Is that when you first, I remember when you shaved your head and I was shocked.
Yeah, it was like literally like, okay, I will blank myself in front of you. You know, like most people don't know, I have this massive birthmark on my arm.
Right.
So when you're 5 and 6 and kids are like, oh, if he touches you, you die.
Right.
I mean, this little kid, that's like a hard thing to fathom.
Right.
Know?
Is that what the other little kids would say? They see a birthmark on your arm and
or
they'd say, oh.
Did you get burned in a fire? Or do you have a disease?
And your back would probably always go up, even when you walked into a room as a kid, because you knew the question was inevitably going to come. Am I going to, you know?
And
hey,
I was very tall when I was young.
Right.
And so, you know, it's like that thing you can't hide.
The religious controversy surrounding Zero has only enhanced its cultural significance. By challenging conventional ideals, the song has become a symbol of rebellion and self-reflection, resonating with those who see their own struggles mirrored in its lyrics. Whether viewed as a bold artistic statement or a provocation, Zero continues to provoke thought and spark conversation now more than 3 decades after its release. By leaving its meaning deliberately open, the song invites listeners to find their own interpretations, making it not just a product of its time, but a timeless reflection on the complexities of faith, identity, and meaning. Beyond religious criticism, Zero faced scrutiny with its perceived nihilistic tone. With its dark themes and aggressive delivery, the song was interpreted by some as an anthem of hopelessness, promoting antisocial behavior, and a rejection of moral values. Critics feared that its stark imagery and bleak outlook would negatively influence young listeners, reinforcing feelings of despair. The perceptions of Zero reflected this broader cultural anxieties in the 1990s. I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind is Nick Hornby's book, High Fidelity, and the classic phrase,
"What came first, the music or the misery?"
The grunge era was marked by what some called grunge angst, a cultural phenomenon that celebrated emotional vulnerability but also drew criticism for allegedly romanticizing depression and disillusionment. The rising popularity of bands like Nirvana and Soundgarden, and yes, the Smashing Pumpkins, coincided with societal fears that this music was encouraging a generation to embrace nihilism. This extended into alt-rock as a whole, pulling in bands like Alice in Chains, Nine Inch Nails. Heck, you could even throw in the Pixies and Sonic Youth to slip back into the late 80s. He viewed Zero as a cathartic expression of his inner turmoil, designed to resonate with those who felt similarly alienated. However, as with the religious controversy, the ambiguous nature of the lyrics left room for critics to project their own fears onto the song. The controversy surrounding Zero extended beyond the song itself to the band's visual presentation. Billy Corgan's iconic black shirt with the word Zero emblazoned on it in white letters became a defining symbol of the Smashing Pumpkins during this era. Add to that his cleanly shaved head, which was so different from the long, grungy hair of the era. While the shirt was embraced by fans as a representation of the song's themes, it also became another focal point for criticism. For fans, the Zero shirt represented empowerment through self-awareness, a way of owning one's flaws and embracing individuality. But for critics, the shirt symbolized despair, reinforcing the nihilistic undertones they saw in the song.
You've let these warped nihilists corrupt you long enough.
Some argue that it glamorized emptiness and hopelessness, turning despair into a youthful fashion statement. The cultural impact of the Zero shirt highlights the power of visual symbols in music. For better or worse, it became inseparable from the song's identity, amplifying its controversial reputation. The critics who already viewed Zero as nihilistic saw the shirt as an extension and glorification of that philosophy, while fans saw it as a badge of belonging in a culture that often dismissed their struggles. Zero struck a deep chord with listeners, cultivating a dedicated following among fans who connected with its unfiltered emotional tone. For many at the time, like myself, the song's rawness felt authentic, offering a voice to those grappling with feelings of emptiness and alienation. I know that certainly resonated with me. The blunt honesty of the lyrics, like "God is empty just like me," resonated as a reflection of their own inner struggles, making Zero a cathartic anthem for a generation kind of searching for meaning. The iconic Zero shirt also became a symbol of rebellion and individuality, helping fans feel a part of a larger movement that shared their discontent with societal norms. Critical responses, however, were mixed. Many reviewers praised Zero for its stripped-down aggression and thematic boldness, recognizing it as a standout track on the sprawling Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness. Its driving riff and that unapologetic delivery were celebrated as hallmarks of the Smashing Pumpkins' ability to push boundaries both musically and lyrically. On the other hand, some critics were less enthused, accusing the song of leaning too heavily into, once again, nihilism and self-indulgence. For these detractors, the track felt like an abrasive interruption to the album's otherwise dynamic emotional landscape. Despite these polarized opinions, the controversy surrounding Zero undeniably elevated its profile. The debates over its lyrics and themes shaped public perception of the Smashing Pumpkins, framing them as a band unafraid to provoke and challenge societal norms, for better or for worse, depending on which side of the Zero argument you landed on. It's a persona that Billy Corgan, to some extent, still retains to this day. Somewhat controversial, abrasive, but say not nearly as out there as Morrissey, for example. This duality, beloved by fans yet contentious in wider circles, helped solidify the song's place in rock history. Zero serves as a powerful example of the complex relationship between art, interpretation, and societal fears. This is not new. It still happens today, more than 3 decades later, and it's happened throughout the history of music, dating back centuries. At its heart, the song invites listeners to confront difficult questions about identity, faith, and existence. However, its open-ended nature also allows critics to project their anxieties onto it, transforming a deeply personal expression into a lightning rod of controversy. This tension illustrates how art can provoke conversations far beyond the artist's original intent, sparking debates that reflect the cultural climate in which it was created. The song also raises questions about the responsibility of artists in shaping their audience's understanding. Should Billy Corgan have anticipated the backlash to his lyrics? Or does the onus lie on the listeners to interpret art within its intended context? On the other hand, is the controversy that stemmed from it overly puritanical from factions of society incapable of having conversations with those whose thoughts and opinions differ or clash from their own? Music often serves as a mirror to individual and societal struggles, and Zero is no exception. It forces us to grapple with the role of lyrics in shaping cultural discourse and the fine line between personal expression and public interpretation. The legacy of the song extends far beyond this initial release, influencing both the trajectory of the Smashing Pumpkins and the broader rock scene. Culturally, Zero has undergone a process of reappraisal. While it remains a polarizing piece of art, many modern listeners and critics now view it as a time capsule of the 1990s existentialism, a bold statement that captured the angst and the uncertainty of the era. Its controversies, once seen as a liability, have become its power, provoking thought and dialogue. Today, Zero is celebrated not only as one of the Smashing Pumpkins' most iconic songs, but also a work that transcends its time to remain relevant in discussions about art, faith, and humanity to this day. By exploring themes of emptiness and alienation, the song tapped into cultural anxieties of the 90s, while leaving a lasting impact on culture and music. But the enduring question remains, does the controversy surrounding Zero enhance its power as a work of art, or does it overshadow its true message? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Do you see Zero as a fearless artistic statement, a misunderstood anthem, or something else entirely? And don't forget to like, subscribe for more Poetic Wax deep dives into music history and culture. In the next few months, I'll be covering more from Mellon Collie and the Infinite Sadness as I dig into other elements of this iconic album that turns 30 in 2025.